Israel has the right to defend themselves.
Do you believe that the Palestinians in Gaza have the right to defend themselves?
I think, I'm not sure what you're getting at.
So you think that all Israel is doing is sending a strong deterrent message, and that's all there is, and that remains within the accepted proportion, whatever.
I don't think that's what I stated, Said. There's obviously a range of circumstances on the ground right now, as you all know. There are the unfortunate recent deaths of the 3 teenagers. There is the kidnapping and then the beating of the other teenager. There's violence and back and forth. I don't have to repeat for you. You know exactly what's happening on the ground.
You don't have to repeat for me, but you feel that sort of the Israeli air raids, like maybe hundreds of them so far this day, are proportionate to the rockets?
That's not. I wouldn't validate the accuracy of that number, but I would say, Said, that I don't think any country would be expected to allow rockets to come in and threaten the lives and health and well-being of the citizens in their country, and Israel has the right to defend themselves.
Do you believe that the Palestinians in Gaza have the right to defend themselves?
I think, I'm not sure what you're getting at, Said.
I'm asking you, do they have the right to defend themselves against Israeli
What are you specifically
aggression?
referring to? Is there a specific event or a specific occurrence?
Do they have the right to respond to Israeli rocketing and bombing their homes, their houses?
We're talking
areas,
about
their
attacks
schools?
from a terrorist organization, Said. I don't think we're having a
also
conversation about what's
population.
happening here.
You agree that there is a civilian population in Gaza that is also subject to...
Certainly, and the threat, as I mentioned earlier, to civilian populations is of great concern to us, and that's one of the reasons why we're so focused on encouraging all sides to de-escalate. Let's get to who's first. I knew it would be you, Said. Go ahead.
Thank you. So, can we start with the Palestinian-Israeli?
We certainly can.
Fight over Gaza. Yesterday, you took issue with my number. Today, the Israelis acknowledged that they have waged, as of 1 o'clock this morning, our time, they have waged 160 bombing runs over Gaza. 39 Palestinians have been killed, including a whole family, children, and so on. Are you doing anything beyond just calling for restraint to actually bring about some sort of a de-escalation or a quiet?
Well, let me first give you a brief update on the Secretary's diplomatic engagement, as well as the administration, I should say. Secretary Kerry spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu this morning, and he plans to speak with President Abbas over the next 24 hours. There's a bit of a time change challenge, as you all know, given he's in China. White House Coordinator Phil Gordon is in Jerusalem and the West Bank today and has been meeting with key decision makers on both sides. He met today with President Abbas, and the Secretary, as I noted yesterday, has been making calls over the past 24 hours to world leaders as we continue to evaluate the situation and look for ways to stop the rocket attacks. As I mentioned yesterday, and I want to reiterate, certainly no country should be expected to stand by while rocket attacks from a terrorist organization are launching into their country and impacting innocent civilians. At the same time, in the Secretary's conversations, in the conversations of all of our senior administration officials, they've been encouraging all sides to de-escalate the situation, and certainly we don't want to see any civilian casualties. That is one of the prominent reasons why it's so important to move forward and de-escalate the situation on the ground.
Okay, you also make very clear time and time again Israel's right to self-defense. And I asked you about the Palestinians' right to self-defense. Let me ask you this. The population in Gaza, is it largely Hamas operatives or largely innocent civilians? And if they are largely Hamas operatives, then an argument can be made that they could be targets. But if they are largely civilians, then they should have certainly the right to self-defense.
Well, Said, I would simply say there's a strong difference between rocket attacks launched by a terrorist organization that is based in Gaza and the right of Israel to defend itself. At the same time, as you know, we work closely with the Palestinians, we work closely with the Israelis, and it's important at this point in time to see if all sides can take steps to de-escalate.
How could you follow, or do you have any means of following what is going on the ground in Gaza in terms of humanitarian suffering, people that lack of water, lack of medical care, lack of food, things of that nature. Do you have
How do we
anyone?
have-
Do you have anyone on the ground in Gaza that can monitor the situation?
Saeed, I think we are concerned about any humanitarian suffering around the world. As you know, that isn't about sides. That's about what's right morally. But I think, do you have any more questions on this issue?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Okay,
You
go ahead.
You also mentioned Mr. Gordon. Phil Gordon said yesterday in a speech at the peace conference, he said that the current Israeli government is not committed to peace. Those were his words. Do you agree?
Well, I think it's been clear that both sides haven't made the difficult choices needed to continue the peace process. And when there's an absence of peace or a peace process, there's a vacuum left that at times is filled by violence. So that's the circumstance we're
But
looking
he
at
didn't say
now.
both sides. He said the current Israeli government is not committed to peace. And he
I'm
went on
not
to
going
say-
to parse
and
his
he went on
words,
to
but
say-
let me finish. We've consistently said that both sides didn't make the necessary choices needed to continue the process. I think we have one more for you, and then we've got to move on.
One more,
Go ahead.
I promise, yeah. And he also said that Israel continues to deny the Palestinians sovereignty, security, and dignity. Do you agree with that assessment?
I'm not going to parse his words. As you know, there are difficult issues with,
he's-
let me finish, Saeed, with strong emotional feelings when it relates to these tough choices that need to be made around the peace process. Certainly, the Secretary, the President still believe, as the President wrote in his op-ed, that is the right path towards a stable and secure long-term Middle East. And that's why we're keeping the door open to a peace process in the future.
But you agree,
I
Mr.
think we need to
Gordon-
move
Mr.
on to
Gordon
other
speaks on
questions.
behalf of the
Samir, go ahead.